Hello, I'm teacher Elsevier, and today I'd like to tell you a bit about Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew, a famous female spy, is often compared with Sherlock Holmes. So, how they're different, how they're similar, let's find out by reading from one of these stories. This is called Mystery of the Midnight Rider. So, at the beginning of this book, we have a small diary entry where she writes, Dear Diary, and then there's an entry there. Peyton Evans had named her horse after the exact time he was born, midnight. I'd never seen such a magnificent horse before. His coat gleamed in the sunlight. His mane and tail both looked like there had never been one sleek hair out of place. And when Peyton rode him, she looked just as perfect. Ned told me Peyton had been riding horses forever and that she and Midnight were first-class champions. She was so lucky to have figured out what she wanted to do with the rest of her life. So chapter 1 is called Riding High. I'm just going to read you one chapter so that you get an idea of our heroine here, who is Nancy Drew. Is that her? I asked, shading my eyes against the glare of the afternoon sun. The one in the beige breeches and tall boots? Ned grinned. You'll have to be more specific, Nancy. Just about everyone out there is wearing beige breeches and tall boots. The two of us were leaning on the rail of a large riding ring at the local fairgrounds. At the moment, it was crowded with horses and riders warming up for their next class. All of them, male and female, teenagers and adults, were dressed almost exactly alike. You have a point, I said with a laugh. So how are we supposed to know who to cheer for once the class starts? Just then, one of the horses separated from the others and trotted toward us. Ned Nickerson? Is that you? The rider called. Ned waved. Hi, Peyton. It's good to see you again. You too. Peyton halted her horse in front of us and smiled shyly. She was about 16, with a slender build and delicate features that made her look tiny atop her horse, an enormous bay with a splash of white on its forehead. Peyton, this is my girlfriend, Nancy Drew, Ned said. Nancy, this is Peyton Evans. Nice to meet you, I said. Your horse is beautiful. Thanks, Peyton leaned forward to give the horse a pat on its gleaming neck. He's actually not mine, though. I'm riding him for my trainer. He's one of her sale horses. He's still a little green, but he's coming along. Green? Ned raised an eyebrow. Looks kind of reddish-brown to me. I rolled my eyes at the lame joke. Green just means he's not fully trained yet, I explained. That's right, Peyton smiled at me. Are you a rider, Nancy? Not really, I replied, but I took some lessons when I was a kid, and I never miss coming out to watch this show. I returned her smile, even when I'm not acquainted with one of the star riders. I glanced around, taking in the hustle and bustle surrounding me. The annual River Heights Horse Show was a prestigious competition, attracting top hunter-jumper riders from all over the country. Peyton's smile faded slightly. I'm not the star, she said, her voice so soft I could barely hear it over the thud of hoofbeats and chatter of riders and spectators. The horses are the stars. I'm just along for the ride. You don't have to be modest, I told her with a chuckle. Ned's told me all about you. He says you've been riding since you were practically in diapers. You've had all kinds of success on the A circuit, and you're super talented and hardworking. Peyton shrugged. playing with the tiny braids of her mount's mane. When she responded, her voice was even quieter. It's easy to work hard at something you love. As an experienced amateur detective, I'm pretty good at picking up clues. But it didn't take a super sleuth to tell that Peyton wasn't comfortable with our current line of conversation. Time for a change of subject. Anyway, I said, Ned also tells me your mom and his mom were college roommates. That's right, Peyton stroked her mount as he snorted at a leaf blowing past. When Mrs. Nickerson heard I was coming to this show, she was nice enough to offer to let me stay with them so I don't have to stay in a hotel. She's thrilled to have you here, and she can't wait to see you tonight, Ned assured Peyton. I'm supposed to tell you not to eat too much today, since she and Dad are planning a big welcome barbecue for you tonight. I chuckled. That sounds like your parents, I told Ned. So are Peyton's parents going to be staying with you too? No, Peyton answered before Ned could say anything. A sad look flitted across her face. They have to stay in Chicago for work today and tomorrow, and then they've got a family obligation that will keep them busy for most of Saturday. But they promise they'll be here in time to watch me ride in the Grand Prix on Saturday. Grand Prix? What's that? Ned asked. I rolled my eyes at him. Weren't you paying attention when I dragged you to the show last year? I joked. The Grand Prix is the big jumping competition on Saturday night. It's sort of like the equestrian competitions you see in the Olympics. Huge, colorful fences that are like 10 feet high. Peyton laughed. Not quite, she said. Even the best Olympic horse couldn't jump a 10-foot fence. The heights are more like 5 feet. Close enough, I said with a shrug. Anything I can't step over myself looks high to me. Ned poked me on the shoulder. Here comes Bess and George, he said. I was wondering where they disappeared to. Bess said she wanted to grab a soda. I noticed that Peyton looked slightly confused as she watched my two best friends approach. George is short for Georgia, I explained with a wink. But nobody calls her that unless they're trying to get under her skin. Peyton nodded. Got it. By then, Bess and George had reached us. Both had sodas, and George was also holding a paper cup of French fries smothered in ketchup. The scent of grease wafted toward me, temporarily overwhelming the pleasant horsey smell of Peyton's mount. Peyton Evans, George Fane, Bess Marvin, Ned said, pointing at each girl in turn as he made the introductions. Bess and George are cousins, believe it or not, he added with a grin. What do you mean, believe it or not? Peyton asked. I laughed. Bess and George may share the same family, but that's about all they have in common. Bess is blonde, blue-eyed, and as girly as they come. George is, well, pretty much the opposite of that. For instance, Bess had dressed up to come to today's show in a pretty dress, stylish flats, even a matching bow holding back her shoulder-length hair. George, she was wearing what she wore just about every day, jeans, t-shirt, and sneakers. Don't pay any attention to them, Bess said. It's nice to meet you, Peyton. So you're the superstar rider Ned keeps talking about, George added, popping a fry into her mouth. He's been totally geeking out about how you're probably going to be in the next Olympics. Is that true? Or is he just pulling our legs? Peyton played with the reins resting on her mount's withers. Actually, my trainer tells me the chef d'equipe of the US team is supposed to come watch the Grand Prix at the show. The chef de what? Bess asked as she reached over and snagged one of George's fries. That's the person in charge of the Olympic team, Ned explained. Mom and Dad were talking about it last night after Peyton's dad called to make final arrangements. Wow, I said. So this big-time Olympics head guy is coming to watch you ride? Maybe so you can decide if you should try out for the US team. I guess so. Peyton shrugged again. I mean, we don't know for sure that he's coming to see me in particular, but my trainer and my parents seem to think so. Awesome. George reached out and tentatively patted Peyton's horse on the nose. So is this the horse you'll be riding when he's watching? No, I'll be riding my own horse, my most experienced jumper. His name is Midnight. Peyton smiled as she said the horse's name. He's really cool. Maybe you guys can meet him later. Maybe you guys can meet him later. We'd love to, Bess said. As long as it's not too much later, because I'm sure Nancy and Ned have other plans this evening. She waggled her eyebrows at me. Sure we do, Ned said. My parents are throwing that barbecue tonight. Remember, you both invited? Oh, right. Bess pursed her lips. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. She wagged a playful finger in Ned's face. I certainly hope you're planning to take Nancy somewhere more romantic than a family barbecue or horse show this weekend. It's your anniversary, remember? How could he forget? You've only been reminding him twice a day for the past month. I was exaggerating, but only a little. Bessie's nothing if not a romantic. Yeah, give it a rest already, George told her cousin. I'm sure Ned has it all under control. Of course I do. I mean, what could be more romantic than this? Ned slipped one arm around my shoulders, helping himself to a couple of George's fries with the other hand. Fried food, horse manure. What more could a girl want? Heads up, a voice barked out, cutting through our laughter. It was another rider, a sharp-chinned teenage girl on a lanky grey horse. The horse was cantering straight at Peyton and her mount. Peyton glanced over her shoulder, then shifted her horse aside just in time to avoid a collision. Sorry, she called to the other rider, even though from where I stood it looked as if the grey horse was the one at fault. The grey horse's rider pulled him to a halt and glared back over her shoulder. Is this your first horse show, Peyton? She snapped. This is supposed to be a warm-up ring. If you want to stand around and gossip, do it somewhere else. Sorry, Peyton said again, though the other rider was already spurring her horse back into a canter. Nice girl, George commented with a snort. Friend of yours? Peyton sighed. That's Jessica. I don't even know her that well. She rides at a barn a few miles from mine, and we end up at most of the same shows. I have no idea why she doesn't like me, but she's never exactly made a secret of it. She grimaced and gathered up her reins. But she's right about one thing. I shouldn't be standing around. I'd better get back to my warm-up. I'll see you guys later, right? So I'm going to stop there. You can see the idea of this book. It's written for young adults, people who might be around the age of the heroine in our story, Nancy Drew, who's a bit of a sleuth, as she says. So she's a bit of a detective. And so now she's having a good time with friends at a horse show. So I'll just read you the end of this chapter. It says here, what is it? Peyton checked her watch. I was about to leave with the ring. I'm on deck, I think. Then I'll make this quick. Donna clenched her fists at her sides, staring up at Peyton. One of the show stewards just received an anonymous tip about you. About me? Peyton looked confused. What do you mean? What kind of tip? Donna scowled. Whoever it is, they're claiming that you drug all your horses. That's the first bit of drama in chapter 1 from this book. And if you'd like to read the rest, this is available at most bookshops in South Africa. And there are many Nancy Drew books because they're very popular stories. On the cover there, you can see the little character Nancy Drew. She's a young girl. So very interesting, quite different to Sherlock Holmes. And it's interesting to see what's similar about them and what's different. Thanks for joining me for that reading. And I must say, I do hope to see you all again soon. Bye for now.